My name is Paul Chamberlain. Welcome and hello. I'm the Ontario Director with the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, more usually called CCEDNet, and I'll be hosting the session today. If you haven't done so already, and I know many of you have, do introduce yourself and say where you're from in the chat box at the bottom right of the screen. So it's great to see where people are from and all the many people in the province and beyond who are doing this kind of work. We have shown briefly some of the webinar tips, technical tips. So you can use the chat box as you're using now to introduce yourself to also ask questions throughout the session, and we'll gather them and make sure that the presenters have a chance to answer them and address them. So comments or questions always welcome in the chat box. So if you are listening and you're through your computer and you're finding that the audio is choppy or delayed, do try closing any other applications using the internet, particularly Skype or instant messaging, website, other web pages, and so on. We find those can sometimes just use up the bandwidth. And we will be recording today's session, and it will be posted on the website as a resource for others who couldn't be here today, or maybe you want to just check another part of it yourself. And immediately following the webinar, we will be sending out a very brief survey, literally a 1-minute survey, for your thoughts on the webinar and to see what we can learn to improve future presentations. And finally, if you are having any technical problems, do just put a note in the chat to my colleague Matthew, or you can email him. He'll put his cell phone and email contact in the chat box so that you can connect with him. And so we'll turn on the recording now and begin the webinar. So today's webinar, Municipal Support of Social Enterprise, Innovative Local Governments, is the final and third of a 3-part series called Sharing SE Ontario Stories. It's brought to you by the Canadian Community Economic Development Network on behalf of the Rural Social Enterprise Collaborative and Liaison Projects. You can see the logos of our inspirational and dedicated partners on the screen there. And also the previous webinars are all available as recordings if you want to check them out yourself or forward the links to others. Also on the registration information page on the CCEDNet site, you will find the more extensive bios of our presenters today, as well as a few other resources that will be posted right after the webinar. So you can go back to that registration page and find some more information there. So I mentioned that this is part of Sharing Stories and the webinar series, and Sharing Stories is also what SE Ontario is all about. We've had one webinar already just totally featuring the features of the site, SE Ontario, and that's one of the webinars that you can check on, but I do encourage you to check out seontario.org yourself. And also one of the previous webinars was about inspiring innovation, the report that you see on the bottom left there. That was the results of the first survey of all nonprofit social enterprises in Ontario. And so the link to that report is also on the site, and there is also a webinar that describes all the information that you can find in the report there. We've also had an excellent series on developing rural social enterprises, and those are available, as well as a series of French webinars. And the final French webinar ends tomorrow with, we're very excited to be presenting asontario.org, which is the French version of this same SE Ontario site. So that's being launched, it's just been launched today, and and there will be the webinar in French on that tomorrow. The goal of Sharing Stories webinar series is, first of all, learn a little more together about what it takes to develop successful social enterprises in Ontario by taking a bit of an in-depth look at several different models of social enterprises. We've heard inspiring stories from group contacts and teamworks that have successfully grown the impact of their work by developing multiple social enterprises as a single organization. And then last week we heard about two very different models of shared space through Common Roof and The Forge. Today we're looking at local government support for social enterprise. And we'll take time a little later to share some ideas about how independent social enterprises might connect with local government. But primarily we're going to hear stories of Fusion Youth and the Screaming Avocado, two enterprises actually run by a municipality and a school board. I'll introduce each presenter and then ask each of them a few questions about their enterprises, and then we'll turn things open to everyone so that you can be involved in the discussion. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jason Smith. Jason has over 14 years experience working in both the private and public sectors. 6 of those he worked as executive director of a nonprofit youth organization. It's his passion for community development, his drive for success, and his dedication towards positive change that I think get him up and get him to work every morning. He's also the father of 3 who loves family vacations and camping. Jason is also president of the Oxford Small Business Support Center, a local CFDC. He's chair of the Woodstock and Area Community Health Center and a member of the County of Oxford Sustainability Committee, among a number of boards and local committees that he's a part of. Jason also runs his own successful marketing company, which he founded in 2005. And on top of all this, since 2006, he's been the full-time manager of Fusion Youth Center with the town of Ingersoll in their Parks and Recreation Department. And that, of course, is why Jason is with us today. So welcome, Jason. And maybe you can begin by just telling us a little bit about Fusion Youth, the Fusion Youth Activity Center, and yeah, tell us all about what it's all about. Over to you, Jason.
Okay, thanks, Paul, for the introduction. And so those that don't know what the Fusion Youth Center is, I'm going to take a little bit of time just to describe the work that we do. And so I would encourage you, you can see on the screen now, I would encourage you to visit our website where you can gather lots of the information that I'm about to present. And so really it started with planting a seed. In 2004, the town of Ingersoll in the fall of 2004 started to look at a strategic plan for the community. There were 6 key areas within that strategic plan that they identified. And the 6th area was specifically focused on youth. And so at the time, Councillor Freeman, who is now our deputy mayor, was a very big advocate and push on municipal council to create a place and space for young people in the community. So at that time, in 2005, after the strategic plan was implemented, a youth committee was put together, both of adults and youth in the community. And from there, a school came available. The Sacred Heart Catholic School came available. And at that time, the municipality decided to purchase it. And then in 2005, nearing the end of 2005, they purchased a school and hired staff who began to take the idea of building a youth place and space in the community for young people. And so with the youth committee, the group of youth and adults and staff, as well as municipal council, began to really collaborate and come together on a number of initiatives within the facility. So in 2006, in February of 2006, we opened our doors for the first time, and we operate a recreational technology skill development center where we have a number of programs. And so I would encourage you to go on our website to see the programs that we have to offer, as well as to see a video that the youth have put together just about the place. But so we offer a number of programs. Another piece that's pretty important to us is the innovation. And so as we work with this youth committee, and we continue to work with the youth committee, we develop innovative ideas by bringing together a number of partners, both at the college to university level, as well as partners from Rogers TV and Heart FM. And we build programs based on the needs in the community, and we build industry standard programs. So radio broadcasting, for example, we work with our local radio station in developing a radio broadcast program. We offer an app development program where we work with an app development business who comes in and works with our youth on those kind of programs. And so obviously the Technology Center is a big component of what we do at the Youth Center, along with the recreation. We offer a digital recording studio, an iMac graphic design lab where we do video editing and graphic design. We also offer radio broadcasting programs, internet cafe, a gaming room zone, and we also have a digital technology training room. One of the important parts of when we started the Youth Center is to ensure that the inclusivity and empowerment of all youth was clear and at the table. And so obviously based on our mandate that shows on the screen there, it was really, really important from the youth and us as staff that we empowered the young people to make the decisions. So the Youth Center is really formed on their ideas, comes from their program ideas and the things that they're interested in. So for example, our recording studio, youth came to the table and said, we would like a recording studio. We said, okay, what does that mean? And so we secured funding and worked with the young people to bring in a recording studio where they now have the opportunity to learn sound engineering skills. Our center is staffed by 18 program staff with varying degrees of education and professional experience. And so each one of our programs has a staff who has a post-secondary degree or diploma in a specific area or field.
So Jason, it sounds here as if you have an amazing program that's engaging a lot of youth and both engaging and empowering them, which particularly in a small rural community is really important. But what about this makes it a social enterprise? So far I haven't really, we'd like to hear more about what makes Fusion Youth a social enterprise.
Mm-hmm. So over the number of years, so obviously we didn't start out doing social enterprise work. It was really back in 2008 when we got together a business advisory committee, a number of businesses in the Ingersoll area, keeping in mind that we're a rural community of about 12,000 people. We got together a business committee, and so we started talking about sustainability. What does that look like? What does the future hold for us? With the municipality holding a majority of the dollars for operating, we also recognized that if we were going to grow, that we needed to also provide some additional dollars to support the work that we were involved in. So today, just through a number of streams, we raised 54% of our budget, and the additional amount, the 46%, comes from the municipality. So we're close to $1 million in operations now. And it was really in 2008 that the committee, when they got together as a business committee, got together, decided, okay, what are some key areas that we could look for sustainable funding? So we have a number of on-site partners who lease from us that provide some additional revenue. And then we also have funders and foundations that fund some of our programs. But out of that conversation really struck a chord to look at the programs that we currently have that are in existence, use that infrastructure, and to develop social enterprises. And so that's exactly what we began to do. So in 2008, we started talking about and developing social enterprises specifically from the programs we were offering. So for example, recording and audio, we looked at the graphic design in the Mac studio that we had, as well as the Computer Rebuild It program. We then went and secured dollars to do 4 business plans. After those business plans were conducted, the really key piece here is we did a focus group with Municipal Council, and obviously the one thing that we dealt with as a municipality was how do we make sure that we don't compete with other local businesses who pay taxes to the municipality. And so we had 4 original business plans that were developed, one being food, digital recording, computer e-waste, and multimedia. The food one became a big conflict with local businesses, and so we decided no longer to run that business. But the other 3 we kept operating and ensured we'd partnered with businesses who were doing similar work in the community. And Council was very clear to say that our prices had to stay competitive and that we weren't to undercut any businesses in the area. So we implemented the social enterprises. And after we implemented the social enterprises, we developed a social enterprise committee, which is made up of staff, community, and youth, as well as the experts in the area of social enterprise. And so we put the committee together, and the committee oversees the development of the social enterprises as well as their ongoing operations. And then we began to promote and advertise our social enterprises both locally and regionally. And then most recently, through some YEF funding that we received, we were able to actually hire 3 youth for 6 months contracts within each of our social enterprises. And so we had the ability to actually hire youth within those social enterprises to conduct work and to grow those social enterprises in hopes that we could sustain some full-time positions within the social enterprises. And then the next, basically we are starting to explore the 4th social enterprise idea, which I'll talk about in a second. So the 4 areas of social enterprise, you can see there I've put the profits on the screen. Multimedia production currently generates a net profit of $15,000 a year, which goes directly back into our programming. As well as digital recording and audio, it generates $10,000 in profit. And probably one of our largest money-making social enterprises is our e-waste and recycling computer social enterprise, generating $25,000 in profit. The uniqueness about all of these social enterprises is that they have the ability to actually train youth in those specific skills, as well as give them employment opportunities, as well as for them to enhance their resume when they go out looking for jobs. The 4th social enterprise that we are looking to get back into is the food services, but instead of now doing catering or food type services, we hope to get into some food processing. And we've had the honor, and I'll talk about that in a bit here, about the OTF funding for that. So as you can see, our multimedia production, we do video and graphic design, and everything that we provide, including software and training, is all industry standard. Then we have our digital recording and audio social enterprise, where youth will work with musicians, and they'll actually be able to produce tracks and DVDs. And most recently, we've been working on a musician who's come into our studio, and our youth are being paid to do the instruments for the musician as they sing. And so it's been a really unique partnership, good partnership there. Then thirdly, our computer and e-waste recycling program, where youth are learning how to build computers. Anything that is not used or able to be reused, we put back into the recycling for recycling, and then rebuild it. We will rebuild any equipment that we're able to and resell it. And we just recently launched an eBay store. Lastly is our food processing. So through an OTF grant, we actually just are finishing the renovations to a youth cafe. As you can see, the pictures are on the screen, as well as a commercial kitchen, where we'll be actually working with some local business partners on doing some food processing. So we're just in the process now of looking at how do we develop that 4th social enterprise. Lastly, how do these social enterprises tie into the greater picture of what we were trying to accomplish when we first opened the youth center? And so, again, through OTF, we received some funding to create a program called Sure Start, which is supporting young entrepreneurs. And so within our social enterprises, the Sure Start program takes on the training piece. They work with young people between the ages of 18 and 29 in developing business concepts. And so youth will go through a 2-week training where they'll create a business idea and launch their business, and we have a grant at the end of the program. Of course, we've locally partnered with the Oxford Small Business Support Center, so if they need other financial assistance to launch the business, we have that ability in there. And so what we try to do with our social enterprises is, at a program level, provide hands-on training specifically to those specific skills, and then provide the business credits that they need in the background to launch their own businesses.
So that's amazing. Just really a lot going on, and building skills at the same time as generating revenue. So that's great. I'm sure it hasn't all been easy along the way. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and some of what you've learned quickly as we finish up?
Yeah, so we've learned a number of things along the way. Obviously, being a municipally owned and operated operation, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. Our council has been very progressive and has been very, very good at allowing us to explore and grow into different areas. I would suggest one of the challenges that we've been faced with is when we did the business plans and they came forward, each of the business plans were recommended to run each social enterprise as their own standalone business. And so when we looked at the business case for that, we felt that in a small community, we wouldn't be able to create enough revenue to sustain those businesses on their own. So what we did with that was, rather than saying, okay, social enterprises are not going to work, we created them at a program level where youth were being trained in those programs or those social enterprises every day, and then we had the ability to raise additional revenue through services through that. So we really took one of those challenges and moved it into a success, we feel. The other thing I'll also mention, and you can see this on our website, is that the University of Guelph, we partnered with them about 3 years ago, and they're looking at the impact of all of our programs, including the social enterprises. And so most recently, they've done a case study that they're working on with our social enterprise, which should be published by the end of the year, which will look at the challenges in operating a municipal social enterprise. But I would encourage everyone to take a look at that research. We're very excited about some of the results. Already those results are beginning to be posted on our website. Yeah.
That's great, and we'll certainly make sure that that information goes on SE Ontario as well and is linked back to your website from there.
Right.
So thank you so much, and we'll certainly, I'm sure people will have questions, and don't forget to put questions in the chat box, and we'll have a chance to connect with Jason after our second presentation. But now let me just introduce Paul Finkelstein. So Paul is a graduate of Queen's University and the Stratford Chef School. He describes himself as a high school foods teacher, a $4 chef, a writer for Best Health magazine, and the host of a show called Think that was once on TV. He's also the father of 3 children who values family, freedom, and above all, adventure and creativity in his kitchen classroom. He sees food as a tool for change. Paul has been recognized for his creative and energetic approach to teaching with both the Prime Minister's and Premier's Awards for Teaching Excellence and the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal. And, of course, he's with us today to share the story of the Screaming Avocado, one of the results of his creativity and energy. So, Paul, let me turn it over to you and tell us, what is the Screaming Avocado?
First of all, thank you so much, Paul. And Jason, wow, I don't know how I can follow up that presentation and what you do. Absolutely incredible. The Screaming Avocado is a high school-based cafe. It's an extension of a culinary program that sees 200 students a year going through it. And we started the cafe. It came about because the food service provider in the school stopped us from selling soup to teachers, and we were selling about 15 bowls of soup a day to teachers. And we needed an outlet for the food that we were preparing in the class and a way to recoup some funds in order to let the kids prepare food or cook food and learn how to prepare food from scratch. We're not a chef school. We teach kids how to cook from scratch because we feel that their parents are the lost generation of foodies and that they have lost the ability to cook or the interest in cooking. And so we're trying to ignite the families to start cooking through the students that we have in our class and to become the cross-generational tools of change within the kitchen at home. So once you're flicking through this for me. Thank you very much. I guess I should be doing that myself. So once we were no longer allowed to sell the soup to the teachers, we had to renegotiate our contract with the school board. The school board had negotiated a contract with the food service provider, which was up at that point. And what they did is they set up a free market economy within our school, and thus the Screaming Avocado was born. We run head-to-head against the cafeteria. The food is prepared by the students, peer-to-peer cooking. Students, like I said, 200 students a day take the program. I have a class of runs about 3 hours every morning, and we prepare everything from scratch using all kinds of ingredients, lamb, duck. For our northern person, we've had caribou. We've had walrus in there. We've had all kinds of different foods through different connections and through chefs that we've had come through and work with the students. The goal of the program, as I mentioned, is to teach kids how to cook and to take the food back home and take their recipes back home. That's their homework. If in the end we get students that want to become chefs through this, then that's a bonus to the program. But really, we want to connect kids to food and to get them back into eating healthy and get off the prefab junk food direction that they seem to be heading in. Paul? Hello?
Yeah, you're still good there, Paul.
Sorry, I was expecting Paul to jump
sorry,
in.
I forgot to unmute myself, having told everybody else they needed to remember to do that.
Unless I lulled you into sleep, and I apologize if I did.
No, I do apologize. No, so I was saying that an amazing program here, but I'm interested in the fact that the school board agreed to have you open a business that's running head-to-head, as you say, with the cafeteria in the school. How did that process happen, and how did you get them to come on board? Because it is something pretty innovative for a school board to be doing and a local school to be doing.
It is, and I've been extremely fortunate in that when people always ask me what hurdles have you had any problems, is I have a school board that has always embraced ideas that will benefit student learning and are cost effective. So what we proved to the school board was that, of course, the students are going to learn through this process, but that we were also going to be able to generate an income and not have to draw off any of the school board's funds. So when we built the Avocado, it was a pretty bare bones classroom. They had to build one because the program was expanding. But what we've done over the past 10 years at $3 a meal is be able to make it into a complete commercial kitchen and renovate it into a space, as you can see. I'm going to flick a little bit backwards here, but make it into a space that's very different than the regular classroom. We want to make a space that was interesting for students to come to. There's loud music pumping, subtle lighting, and to make it something which is a home away from home or a classroom away from the classroom where students can come in and relax. And through the growth of the Avocado and through its success, we've had many different school boards from across the country contact us and to come in and see how this is done. And what it really comes down to is working with the school board and getting the school board to have trust in teachers and have trust in initiatives like this, and to then write it within the contract of the food service provider.
Nice, yeah, and I gather you have actually taken the students from the Avocado to a number of places too, right? To share the idea.
I'm really terrible at remembering to push the slides, so anybody's out there following, I'm going back and forth. But first of all, I'm going to touch, Paul, on the fact that we shifted from not just having the cafe, but we also then set up Seeds of Change Garden, which is a 3,000 square foot organic garden in the school courtyard, which is underused. We snuck in one night, cut down the trees. So we work with local farmers and local organizations like the local community food center, which is part of the Canadian Food Centers, and we get the kids in here working growing food and doing a seed to table approach. From there, we shifted into taking over the greenhouse and run a Vegucation center and Aquaponics program, which we just started this past year, which is right here, and get the students connected to that side. So it's not just about growing food, but it's also skill development. And also, because we are in Stratford and surrounded by a vast amount of farmland, it's getting kids that grew up in the city and ignore the farming community that's around them to actually get their hands dirty and to see where food does come from. The farm kids think we're a little crazy in some of the stuff we do, especially on the organic side, because they don't really understand that whole loss of yield if you could be using some GMOs and some spraying, but it really gives them the opportunity to see farming in a different way and also food production in a different way. One of the things that we do through the fundraising that we do, through not just through the Avocado, but we also fundraise by doing caterings and other events that we can do, is we take the students on trips. We've traveled Japan, Italy, New York City, Cuba, and our new passion is Northern Ontario and to Nunavut. We have a program or received a grant through the provincial government to take a program called Eat Fit to the north and to work with schools in those communities and teach the students in those communities how to cook, and then inspire the teachers to also take the skills that we're teaching them and pass them on to their students and get their students to also bring it back home to their families. I know there's somebody here from Iqaluit. We just had 2 girls with us staying with us for 2 weeks that came down from Cape Dorset to spend some time and to see what school is like in the south, and part of that came through funding that we've raised through the Screaming Avocado.
That's amazing, and just great to see both the students kind of learning, as you say, from the getting the hands dirty and actually where the food comes from to preparing it, and just wonderful that you've been able to then share this idea and share it in so many different places across the world. That's amazing. So I know we have people have some questions. I have a couple myself, but let's start with questions that other people have. So the folks at Sarah Community Ventures, and I know there's a few of you there who are participating, and they're have a specific question for Jason. So Jason, you balance $1 million budget with $500,000 from your social enterprise businesses. Can you elaborate how much is sponsorship, how much is government or foundation funding, and how much does the municipality kick in? So maybe just getting a bit more sense of the funding and how that works for the Fusion Youth there.
Sure, absolutely. So $500,000 is contributed from the municipality's tax levy. The remaining, we raise approximately $120,000 from leases of those that rent space from us out of the facility. And then we have about $50,000 that we raise through donations, the $50,000 that we raise through social enterprise, and the remaining amount comes through grants and funders. So folks like our local union, RBC, and the United Way are some of our larger contributors that contribute every year.
Great. And then your staff time, you would be sort of on so one of the main ways that the municipality would contribute would be through staff salaries as part of Parks and Recreation staff. Is that correct?
That's right. So the staff complement that I have are all hired through the municipality. And so the one thing about social enterprises is because I can use staff in a number of areas, the social enterprises pay for a portion of the staff when they're working in the social enterprises. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, and one other question for you related to money there, Jason.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned earlier in your presentation about business plan development and being able to develop business plans for each social enterprise that you run. And so Tricia is asking whether you got grants to be able to do that or how you managed to finance that process.
Yes, so we received a grant to do 4 of those business plans, and I believe it was through some of the economic stimulus funding that came down in 2008, 2009.
Okay.
That we received, yeah.
Helpful to know. And maybe I'll just flip a little bit to a question for Paul there. In terms of the financing of the Avocado, you mentioned that in terms of your trips and so on, that you've been able to generate revenue yourself through the catering and different things that you do. Are there other ways that the Avocado gets funding support, and how does it work sort of financially?
No, we actually just make, as far as the Avocado and its survival, we do working at about $125,000 a year in sales at $3 to $4 a meal for students. And that's including some caterings we do outside. As far as the trips go, we finance through that, but then we also apply for as many grants as we can to get the students across the country.
Okay, great. And then another question for both of you from Julia. So how do you promote yourselves? Jason, how do you differentiate yourself from local business? And I know you're connected with the local CFTC, so there. And then Paul, how do you promote the Screaming Avocado so that you're able to do all this traveling and education elsewhere? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think, yes, I was thinking the same thing. So maybe, Jason, can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we were really clear about with the social enterprises that we operate is we made sure that they were different than any other services offered in our business community. And then the one thing that we did was we brought together our local businesses in a business advisory capacity to ensure that whatever we did was not duplicating or competing against local businesses. And so, we do promote ourselves as a social enterprise, and one that we're providing training specifically to young people with a professional that is there to guide and help. The one thing about especially our multimedia, we've got the ability to really create videos for anyone in any region. So we've had the luxury of working in a community that don't have these 3 services that we offer.
Yeah, well, I've also found, I'm sure Jason finds it too, when you push the youth aspect of it, and it's hitting the mark of what people want, they jump on board, especially when they're going to be supporting youth and they're seeing that youth are developing and growing through this. People come and ask us to get the students out, and when the students out, they sell the programs as well. They are extremely, at least I know, I'm sure yours are too, Jason. They're excellent with in any catering that we send them out to, or any event we send them out to, and they really sell the program for us.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Yeah, and the youth do an excellent job. And what we try to do with our social enterprises is allow youth to experiment with every role that you would see in a business. And so, we have sale manager positions that they get to actually go out and try to sell the services in the community. So, for example, we'll put together special promotions that they get the opportunity to go out and sell. So, youth are very much, rooted in everything that we do.
I would also what I do is that we seize any media opportunity that we can, and especially on the food side, and with the obesity and diabetes rates growing across Canada, it's very easy if you're serving healthy food to students and having students prepare it themselves. And so when I see a media opportunity, we jump on it, get the kids front and center, and that's what helps to bring us attention across the country and throughout this area, which then opens opportunities up for the students. And this is where a lot of our experiences have come from, and some caterings outside of this area, which then opens up the travel for students.
Yeah, so the keeping the youth really central to it, and the youth doing the promotion themselves, which is great. And I know just you mentioned the videos there, Jason, and we do have a link to one of your videos that's if people go back to the registration page where they registered for on the CCEDNet site, there is a link to the video there, and there will be a few other resources, as I mentioned. Another question there from Lorne in Ottawa. So let's not a focus on the finances here. Do you see the Youth Centre is being fully financing without government support? And similarly, for the Screaming Avocado, is the food sale portion of your work fully self-financing at this point? So maybe, Jason, do you want to jump in first?
Sure, I can jump in first. So, that's an interesting question. It's one that we've been asking ourselves for the last 10 years as we've been developing, growing. And the one challenge with any funding is the length of time that term of funding is in place for. So with having government support, we know that it's sustainable. We know that it's essential funding, core funding that we will receive. And so I don't ever picture a day that we would be free of our local municipalities' financial support. But what I do see is reducing that. And so when we originally started, we were at an 80% capacity, where we were relying on 80% of funding from the municipality. We're now down closer to 46% from the municipality. So we see that number reducing, but we don't see it dissipating altogether.
And on our side, we are still putting about 200 kids a day through after 10 years. So we're surviving. The one problem that we did have is that we didn't raise our prices for 9 years, and the cost of food kept on increasing across our raw materials. We've hooked up now with the local community food center, and they provide a lot of pass-through that they get through their food center onto us, which is helping keep our costs down. But we are continually making money, and all is good and healthy in the Screaming Avocado.
That's great. And there's another sort of related question for you there, Paul, just in terms of knowing that you mentioned that you do run head-to-head with the school cafeteria. So how do you avoid the negative impact on the current food service provider in the school?
I don't really. We've avoided each other for 10 years, but I have no problems in selling what we sell, and hopefully putting some pressure on them to sell healthy or fair. Within Ontario, they had a policy went through to make schools sell healthy food, or at least to eliminate what are considered to be the bad food. But now they serve a lot of white flour, margarine, and artificial sweetener-filled foods in the cafeterias, and we're selling everything made from scratch. So I have no problems in pushing hard on them to try to change the way that they serve the kids and change the way they look at food.
Great, and hopefully, as you say, change what the kids are demanding as well, which would be great.
Yes, exactly.
So the folks at CIRA have a question, just thinking about, what are some of your biggest challenges or even mistakes that you've made along the way, and how did you overcome them? So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in first on that one.
I can if you want.
Sure.
We've tried many different projects. We had a 5-acre farm that we ran for 2 years, and realized after that, the 2 years, that the students were interested in working. We tried many different initiatives with different kids, and And since it is youth-driven, we do the best we can as teachers, but every year you get a different group of students coming through, and their interests change. And I don't ever see any of the mistakes. The mistakes on financial side, we haven't had any of those. The chances in stepping forward and trying different things, I would say, although they're mistakes sometimes, and we didn't read it properly, it's a learning for us, and also learning for the students involved, that what you do isn't always successful. But by not trying, you're not going to have success in the end. So we've had lots of attempts and some great success, and then other ones that were failures. But we still keep on trying and pushing the envelope.
Yeah, that's important. And I know learning from the mistakes is important. And I know when we putting the social enterprise stories up on seontario.org, we encourage people to talk a little bit about the mistakes that they've made along the way too, because we actually learn more from the mistakes than we do from the successes sometimes. So that's great. That's great. Jason, anything?
Yeah, a couple challenges that I would probably point out. One, and we continue to deal with this, but we're getting better at it, is how to continue to sell the positive outcomes of running not only the youth center but also social enterprises. And so we seem to continually need to prove our case and say why we do what we do. And, as the youth successes come out and as the research with the university comes out, it's becoming much more clear, that there is a case here for the work that we do. So that's been a challenge, and something that we've dealt with since day one. Is really just not only selling the services we have to offer, but selling ourselves as well, to say this is something that the municipality needs to continue to invest in. And for those who do get the Municipal World magazine, the November issue does have a good 4-page article on some of the outcomes and research founded on the youth center, and it's a really good article, so I'd encourage you to read that. And then the other challenge was really trying to balance the difference between youth who wanted to be in the program and invest their time into it, but also encouraging youth that were on the fringe that didn't know much about the social enterprises. And so we put together a tool that we use to encourage youth to try it out and to get involved in the social enterprises.
Okay, nice. And that municipal piece is something that Kim is also asking about. I think you sort of partially answered the question, but you may want to go in a little bit more depth on that, Jason. So she's saying, was the municipality fully supportive right away, or did you have to win them over? And if so, what did it take to win them over? Or it sounds as if in some ways is part of that winning people over still something that you have to do with parts of the municipality as well, or are they pretty well won over at this point?
Yeah, obviously in the beginning, we always knew that there was some council that supported the work that we did and others that didn't. As we were able to, really begin a PR campaign around, putting youth out there and saying these are things that they're learning, and youth would get in front of council and say, these are the good things I'm seeing at the youth center. So, I think it's an ongoing process. I would say that a majority of municipal council supports us. Obviously, we just went through an election, and so we have some new members of council who will have to be brought up to speed on what we do, but we believe that we've got a majority of our community and council support. And to say that we had that in the beginning, I would say we weren't there, but I would say we're getting there.
Okay, and I know, just because I've heard a little bit of an initial presentation on the work that University of Guelph is doing, that they
okay. I think we lost Paul there.
I'm here. The other Paul, maybe, yes.
Yeah, I think his phone just got out on him.
Jason, you there?
I'm here, yep. I think we lost Paul.
Got to say that your youth center.
You're the other Paul. You fill in.
Yeah, I was going to say. Well, there you go. Jason, your youth center is far far better than ours with 2 pool tables.
Right. And that's the interesting thing. Our municipal council. That's when they originally said they were going to invest in a youth center. That's what a lot of them, I think, envisioned. Right. They didn't know what it meant when we started developing some of the programs. So now that we've developed and we've been able to bring them up to speed, they've really caught on to the vision of it all. So because most people think a youth center should be in the bottom of a church or in the basement with a couple pool tables with a couple volunteers.
And and I'm sitting. I just had to leave a meeting where we're talking about it's a community-based meeting, and we were talking about all kinds of different aspects of the community. And when the youth one came up, they talked about the community center for youth, the youth center, and the two pool tables. And then you look at the rest of the youth that are wandering around trying to find something outside of school, and it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's really interesting what the crime rate has even done in our community since we've opened the center. There's been a dramatic decrease by almost, I think, 75%. So
I don't see any tagging or spray paint art in anything that you're doing here.
Right.
Should we bring that up?
Yep.
Paul, my phone just died. Can you take it? Matthew, you're taking over.
I'm taking over, apparently. A question that I would have would be when it comes to you're both operating youth social enterprises. What are some key partnerships you feel you've needed to develop in order to succeed as a social enterprise?
Jason?
Sure, I can start off with that one. So first off, the most important partnership that we created was the one with the funder who funded our business plans, and then working with a consultant to develop those business plans, because that really launched us into focus groups within the community, and we found other business partners who came to the table. I would say our college and university partners have been pretty important within our social enterprises as we develop them. And then Ontario Trillium Foundation has been a very significant partner for us over the last 8-9 years. And they've helped us tremendously grow and to expand, and they've always been there for us. So that I would say those are kind of our key partners.
Great. Excellent. Jason?
I
think you mean Paul. That was.
Oh, that's me. Yeah. You know what? Partners, the local community food center is the big one for us. But we've also have worked with other local service groups and the likes on that side. What we find is that more groups are coming to us to ask us to partner with them than us going to partner with other groups. The lucky side for me, of course, is that I'm a teacher, so my wage is covered. The Avocado is covered with regards to the rent, and my labor force are the students. So we're good on that side. Equipment-wise, we cover that ourselves, and it's more people coming to us and asking if we can work with them than us going and asking for us to work with them. You got what I'm saying.
Hi, it's Paul back with you again, and I do apologize for the fact that my phone just totally died on me there. Did the question about social procurement that I was asking when it died, did that get addressed?
No.
Yes.
Oh, did it?
Well, I don't know if it did or not, but I thought maybe it did.
Okay, so just, I don't know, so just, I guess the question was, whether the municipalities or the school board really, whether they have any policies about buying through the social enterprise, or do they just do it anyway? Do you get quite a bit of business directly from the municipality? And I don't know, Jason, did you address that at all?
No, so I can answer that. So with being owned and operated by the municipality, we work interdepartmental with a number of departments, and so we provide those services to the departments when they require it. And so there wouldn't be any policy per se that says that they have to deal with us, but it's just that the internal partnerships that we've created throughout the municipality.
Great. On our side, we cater for the school board, and we charge them what we charge everybody else for catering. Not very nice.
I've had a list up there on the screen for a bit things that social enterprises have come up with about ways that they can involve municipalities and local governments. So everything from sort of forgiveness of taxes to getting grants to actually owning the enterprise, as happens in these two cases, other partnerships, the support of libraries, use of publicly owned buildings, providing insurance for the enterprise. Sometimes if an independent social enterprise is getting going and they need to have an environmental assessment, then sometimes municipalities have provided that. And then contracting with the social enterprise is and procurement, which is what we're talking about now. Have there been, for both of you, and also just have there been ways that that you haven't sort of thought to mention so far that the municipality or the school board have ended up really supporting the work that you're doing? And also just encourage any others of you who are on the line, if you have things from the way municipalities have supported your social enterprises, do share those ideas through the chat box as we're finishing up. So I don't know whether there's anything from either Jason or Paul on that.
On my side, the best support the school board can give me is to allow me to do what I do without becoming too involved in micromanaging anything that is happening in the Avocado, and we've had freedom to do this, so it's all great on my side.
Well, I guess the fact that you've been able to establish, really benefit the reputation of the board by having through the Avocado and even an international reputation, I guess that helps them leave you alone to do what you're doing, because it's good for them too, right?
Yes, exactly, and it's beneficial, of course. What I've found is foods programs, and anybody I discussed with this about across Ontario is if you have it, but the host Catholic school doesn't have it, it draws students into the school. So it works well as far as putting kids in seats and helping the school board to grow.
Right, great. And Jason, anything from you on that?
I would concur the same comments as Paul, that that the fact that municipality has given us the flexibility and freedom to grow our social enterprise and invest our time in them has been a tremendous support for us. And so we do appreciate that from the municipality, where they're not micromanaging every level of our operations, and gives our youth an opportunity to create and innovate.
Okay. I think we're just about at the end of our questions. Sandra had a little bit of a clarification. She was just interested, because of the social procurement work she's doing, she was just interested whether the idea of social procurement, as far as either of you know, is on the radar or being discussed at all in your municipalities. Are they talking about the idea that, hey, maybe they should be buying through other social enterprises, or could be buying through other social enterprises in the community? Are either of you aware whether that's on the radar at all in either Ingersoll or within Stratford or the school board at all?
Not that I know of, no.
And yeah, same here. I'm not sure that it's on the radar of municipal council. I mean, if you have some example policies that have been developed in other municipalities, I'd be more than happy to take a look at those and see how we can get that out to our municipal council. I think it's a great idea, but something that's not at the table right now.
Yeah, so certainly that's something that in the GTHA at the moment, with the Pan Am Games coming up, there's been some really solid work around that happening, and then also a real first for a big city in terms of the city of Toronto, where some of the expansion of the Eglinton light rapid transit through Metrolinx, they actually have put together a policy that includes local hiring, local training, and involvement of local social enterprise. So certainly we'll be beginning to share some of that through SE Ontario, and I'd love to hear about anything coming up from any other organizations. And Marion is asking what is a definition of social procurement? What do we mean? And basically, the best way I can. Sandra's giving mentioning the website, but basically it's the idea that institutions, organizations, municipalities, when they're tendering for whatever they're doing, will they look at social enterprises and look maybe first to purchase through social enterprises, or if they have a point system, would they give bonus points for the fact that it is a social enterprise, because not only is it, so they're not just looking for the bottom line of the financial, what's the best financial deal, but they're also looking at, hey, these businesses are benefiting our community, they're training youth, and so on. So it would be kind of giving a bit of precedence to that, or providing extra points in their rating system for that. And
sorry, if I could add to that, I would also say that through our Sure Start entrepreneurship program, we do have a component about social business, and we just recently did a conference where we brought 120 youth from all of the local high schools together, and there was a component on social enterprise within that piece. And so I feel over the next couple of years we'll be doing some significant work in terms of youth that would like to launch social enterprises or social purpose businesses.
Okay, great. And so we do need to wrap up. I have a couple of comments to finish. Sandra has mentioned a paper that she's written, so if Sandra, you can either put the link right in there or send it to me, and we'll make sure everybody gets that. So we'd certainly like to share that. We know people are interested in that. So as we do just finish up, if any of you do have additional questions as well, Jason and Paul have agreed that if you just send them to me directly by email, they will answer them, and then we will publish them for everyone to see. I have put the front page of SE Ontario up on the screen, and I do truly invite you to make seontario.org your online community. We're getting many of the stories of these social enterprises up there, and we're hoping to get Screaming Avocado and Fusion Youth up there very shortly as well. If you run a social enterprise in Ontario, then do post your story. That you can. There's a form you can just fill in all the information, and it'll get it up on the site. And also, if you know of resources that you find valuable as social enterprise developers, or if you have social enterprise news or question of the month, then there's ways of engaging through the site. So we encourage you to do that. And also just check out our YouTube channel or follow us on Twitter. And as I mentioned, this webinar and previous ones will be are available for recording, and this one will be shortly. So do feel free to check those. And just a very quick promo: the Canadian Conference on Social Enterprise is going to be taking place in London, Ontario, in next April. And so the registration is now open for that. So again, we'll make sure that you have the link to that. We'd encourage as many of you as possible to connect there. And just finish up by saying thank you to, first of all, to the Trillium Foundation, who's provided the support for this, and our partners at RSEC and Liaison Partners, and to my colleague Matthew for keeping the technology going, particularly when my phone gave up. And a huge thank you to Jason and Paul for sharing such inspiring and educational stories with us. It's been really wonderful. And a big thank you to all of you for being such active participants. And please do just take a moment. You should be receiving the 1-minute email survey, so please do fill that in so that we can get our feedback. So thank you all.